Hi, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to my weekly podcast about spirituality, love, death, devotion, and waking up while living in a messy world. The Satsang with Shambhavi podcast is recorded live each week with students of our nonprofit community, Jayakula. For more information and to find out about attending a satsang, visit jayakula.org. Thanks for listening. Much love to you, wherever and however you are.
Shambhavi, I kind of wanted you to riff on what you're talking about trees in the other satsang. I kind of wanted to hear more about that.
Great. I participated in a satsang that has been going on for 4 years with a friend of Jayakula's, Pragya Hallstrom, who is, among other things, a devotee of Anandamayi. Pragya is just finishing up a new 2-volume set of 600 pages of Ma satsangs that have never been published before. So it's pretty incredible. I don't know when it'll be out, but she does have a publisher. It still might be quite some time before it's out. Today, they did the very first Zoom, and there was people there from all over the world, which was really sweet. And Pragya read a little bit from her new book of Satsangs of Ma. And she's going to do this the first Sunday of every month. It's at 1 p.m. Pacific, which is perfect because that means you can go to that and come to this too if you want to. So you can look that up if you're interested. One of the satsang bits that Pragya was reading today, a fellow asked Ma a question where he talked about finding the Mahatma that was sitting under a tree. I can't really remember the exact question, something like that. And Ma asked him, what is a tree? The tree, and then she went on to say that the tree is the Mahatma and the tree is the Mahasiddha. And she said, you are also the tree. And what that reminded me of was many years ago, I got a message where some voice of wisdom said to me, trees are rivers to the sky. And that really just changed my experience of trees forever. So while Pragya was reading the satsang, I was thinking about a person being a tree and how in order to grow and to touch the vastness of the sky, we have to draw nourishment from the earth. And that nourishment from the earth has to be transmuted into finer substances. And then we have to give leaves so that our leaves can turn and receive the light of the sun, which is a living symbol of prakasha, the light of awareness. So that's what I was thinking during the satsang, and how it's just such a useful image to think of, that in order to self-realize, we have to be connected to the earth, and we have to know how to draw nourishment. The tree spans all the realms. Just like Ganesha spans the earthly, the human, and the godly realms with his big body. You know, he has at least 1 foot touching the ground at all the time. And then he has this big celestial head. And we are the same when we want to realize we have to be in touch with all the different manifestations of God. We can't just ignore the earthly part. So that was something else that I was thinking when Ma was talking about the image of the tree. There's a lot of good wisdom in contemplating rivers and river-like things, because everything here in manifest life is in some process of movement. One time I went to a river. It's in Northern California because I was living here. I just don't remember which river it was, but it was somewhere north of the Bay Area. When you want to resolve or dissolve something that's problematic, sometimes you can do a ritual of putting it into a river, because the river will take that, whatever it is, and it'll recycle it and reuse it so that someone else can benefit from something that didn't benefit you. Oftentimes, we can also burn things so that the smoke can go up and that energy can be reused for someone's benefit. When we want to get rid of something, we don't want to just think of destroying it. For instance, at the end of a puja, there's remains of the puja, like little bits of flowers and food and other things, oil, and those are all called nirmalyam, which is the remains that are offered to the bhutas, the elemental beings, so that they can benefit from the things that we wouldn't serve us, but will serve them. And then they get these blessed things at the end of the puja. And you never throw anything out at all. Nothing is ever discarded in an unconscious way or with the bhav that it's not useful. Everything is useful because everything's made of God. So when we have things we want to get rid of, like habits or relationships or initiations, which is what I was getting rid of when I did this puja, we're not saying, I want to get rid of this thing. It's terrible. Goodbye. Never trouble me again. We want to recognize whatever that thing is as some quantity of energy, wisdom, that even though it's hurting us or not useful for us anymore, we've outgrown it or it's past its prime or something, it could still be food for somebody else, even if it's not food for us. So burning things and then putting things in rivers are the two ways that I've most often recycled things that need to be recycled. Anyway, so I went to this river, long story long. I went to this river and did Ganga Puja at the river and waded into the river to put things in the river as offerings, and also with the prayer that it would be recycled. And when I got pretty far into the river, I had this moment of clarity, which was every river is the Ganga, that you could do Ganga Puja to any river on earth, and that the Ganga was like the mother of all rivers. And then later when I had this download about trees are rivers to the sky, then I started just seeing everything as an aspect of river. So that's just something you can play with in your perceptions. How many rivers can you spot in your everyday life? I've done this a number of times with rivers too. Like one time when I was in India, I very, very foolishly spent an inordinate amount of money on a mala that didn't even turn out to be usable for a particular reason. But it was extremely expensive and, just was complete ridiculous pridefulness that I bought it. And so I was, just by happenstance, was driving with someone to this place called Devaprayaga, which is up above Rishikesh. It's in the mountains. And it's where two sacred rivers come together in a sangam. The river is crazy, like at that point where they come together. They're rushing down these mountains. You have to walk over this bridge. We went there. It wasn't rainy season. It wasn't monsoon season. But I was told that in monsoon season, this footbridge that went from the side of the mountain to this fork of land that was dividing these two rivers for the last time, that the water would come up over the causeway of the footbridge, during monsoon season, which just seemed terrifying. Anyway, we got over there, and in order to get in the river and bathe in the river, you have to tie chains around your waist so that you don't get swept away. There was a bunch of sadhus there. It was a big pilgrimage site. So there was a bunch of sadhus in some little hut smoking weed, totally stoned out of their gourds, demanding money from everybody. And especially because I was Western, white, they just saw me as like a walking dollar sign. So this one guy comes up to me and says, I forget what he said, something like, I am Lord Ganga or something. I don't know, something like utterly ridiculous, expecting me to be this completely brainwashed Western person. So I went into the river and I had this really, really expensive mala. And I started like doing prayers and doing water offerings. And it became clear to these sadhus that I was going to throw this incredibly expensive coral mala into the river. And they all came running. No! But basically I did it. And I just said, please recycle this. Make it useful. And if it ever comes back to me, I'll know this karma has been resolved. I also did it with another mala in Rishikesh a different time, because this was my very first trip to India. And I went to this really traditional mala seller in Rishikesh to buy a Rudraksha mala that was very, very small beads. And I haggled with him over the price. And he looked absolutely like a combination of weary, disgusted, sad, a whole bunch of things just were coming out of him. And he just said in this quiet voice, "You aren't supposed to bargain for things like this." And he said it in a way that I knew he wasn't just trying to get more money out of me. But he kind of like tiredly and disgustedly sold it to me for less money. And I always remembered that and I felt badly about it. So when I went back to Rishikesh years later, I couldn't find this shop. Like I found the street I thought it was on, but it was so long ago, I couldn't quite remember. And there was a Jyotish shop. Were you there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was a Jyotish shop on the same street. An astrologer had set up shop. And I thought, I'm going to go in there and ask him what I should do. So I had this mala. And my plan was I was going to actually pay him a bunch of money to like, as restitution for having been such an asshole and know nothing. And so anyway, I walk into this Jyotishi shop and there's this picture of Ma on the wall. And I explained the situation to the Jyotishi. I asked him what to do, and he said, put it in the river and say this certain prayer. So that's what I did. So that's rivers.